Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Seemantini Godbole. Seemantini is the Executive Vice President and Chief Information Officer of Lowe's Companies, a nearly $75 billion revenue home improvement retailer. She's held that role for nearly 3.5 years, and in it, she's responsible for leading innovation, product, engineering, data, technology operations, and security globally for the company. I look forward to covering all the above in our interview today. Seemantini, welcome to Technovation. It's wonderful to speak with you again.
It's so great to be here, Peter. I'm really looking forward to this opportunity to speak with you and the whole audience.
Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to do so as well. Well, let's begin with your role. You are the Executive Vice President and Chief Information Officer of Lowe's, and you have been in role for since November of 2018, so a little more than 3 years now. And as CIO, I know from our conversations, you have a rather expansive purview, perhaps a bit broader than the average chief information officer. And I wonder if you could take a moment and describe the various parts of the organization that report through to you and the logic in putting those various parts together.
Absolutely. And, Peter, before even I answer that question, I'll just tell you, I absolutely love my job. And every day when I come in the morning to work, I'm so excited about everything we can do. And I think the job involves, bringing technology to every aspect of our Lowe's business across our end customers, our associates, our vendor partners, our pro customers. And the way it is structured is, there is technology for our physical locations. So all our stores are more than 1,800 stores in the US. It also brings supply chain into the picture because we do a lot of supply chain technology as well. Merchandising, because merchandising is lifeblood for retail. And that is all, let's say, more associate-facing technology. It lets us do business in our locations. Our sales that are flowing through the stores, they are all managed through these systems, and our associates are using these products day in and day out to sell to our customers. But on the other hand, then, we are also directly managing the technology for our end users or our customers, so such as Lowe's.com, the Lowe's iOS and Android app, and all those experiences that we are enabling online. And then there is so product and engineering for all these products. But then we also have data, because data, again, is the lifeblood of business. And what we are doing is that we have a data organization which has created something called as a data platform. But then there are also data products. So we have a data platform, and then we deploy data products, such as there could be an AI model, there could be a dashboard. That's all deployed on data platform. And then lastly, we have innovation as part of technology. And, Marvin recognized from the very beginning that innovation is going to give us that leapfrog, that edge when it comes to bringing customer experiences. So we are always using technology to bring more innovation to our customers.
That's great. The Marvin you're referring to, of course, is Marvin Ellison, the Chief Executive Officer of Lowe's. That's great. Well, thank you for that overview. Really interesting to think about the various ways in which the parts and pieces fit together and the advantages of doing so. I want to delve a little bit further into data, if you will, and the development of data platforms, data products. You referred to and make, I think, a compelling case that data is the lifeblood of the business. As somebody who's a seasoned IT executive now from across multiple retailers, for example, talk a bit about the evolution of that. There's always been data, of course, but the ability to harness it in creative ways and to develop insights and to move business more quickly in the right direction and to have more compelling experiences for customers as a result of reading the tea leaves associated with the data that's provided by them and for them. Talk a bit about that evolution, if you will, and what excites you as you think about the further development of data products for the organization.
Yeah, and Peter, I'm old enough where I've seen those days where, data existed in very fragmented spaces. And what I mean by that is there used to be these, what we called as source systems. So your POS, your registers, your, let's say even Lowe's.com websites. And they used to create these streams of data. Your data would get pumped into a warehouse or a data lake somewhere. And these two subsystems were then completely disconnected. They didn't have any connection back and forth with each other. You did all the creation of the data in the source system in one hemisphere, let's say, and in the other hemisphere, you had this data all collected in data lakes, and somebody else, completely different personas and user groups, were doing some analysis on that data. And now, so that disconnected world, the flow of data, the SLAs around it, how often would it come? When would it be available? There was a lot of difference. I mean, talking about hours before data is available was really normal, even days. Like it was accepted and it was okay. And like I said, I'm old enough to talk about things like that. And now I think we are in a completely different life cycle and different. We have a completely different perspective. So, for example, these two hemispheres now are completely connected. And in fact, we have created virtuous cycles at Lowe's on top of this. And what I mean by that is that the data is created, it flows instantaneously, real time into the data lake. But then there are AI models which are sitting on top of the data lake, which are kind of drawing conclusions, insights, whether it's a recommendation, whether it's for search, whether it's for kind of localization and assortment planning, whether it is for things such as workforce optimization, like who should be in the store at what time to help our customers. And there are, we are looking at hour by hour sales, and we are saying, well, on a Wednesday between 12 to 4, we really need electricians in the stores helping out customers, because that time the queries around electrician related projects are highest. And so we are making sure that our staff is in the right place at the right time to help the customers. And so these AI models then they are generating insights, feeding it back to the products. So if I were a associate in the store, if I were a store manager, I get to see my schedule and I'm able to change it. I'm able to get insights. I'm able to get a recommendation as to what is the optimum schedule. And this virtuous cycle about data is being created. Immediately, there is model running, which is driving insight, feeding it back to the product, which, by the way, might have generated the data to begin with. I think that virtuous cycle is what we are driving at Lowe's.
It's interesting, Seemantini. Thank you so much for that overview. I want to also talk a bit about the significant change you and your team have helped marshal in through the time of the pandemic. You know, the at least the 5-year high for your stock, if I've got my data correctly, was around mid-February 2020, and the stock roughly halved, if I can use that at least as one of the metrics, an obvious one to determine how the market was feeling about Lowe's. It halved in just about a month's time in 2020, like so many companies, of course. And now you are more than double the price of that February high, at least as we're doing this recording now. There have been a tremendous number of pivots that have been remarkably successful. But I can only imagine, number one, a portion of that is based upon the hard work you had done, obviously not planning for a pandemic, but allowing for some nimbleness, given the fact that you do not control the business cycles, you do not control when and where opportunities or even issues present themselves. And so reorienting perhaps in the early stages of your time with Lowe's, the organization, to become a bit more nimble. And I'd love to talk a little bit about some of that, the pre-pandemic work that paid off tremendously during the course of it. And then perhaps we can move on after that to some of the specifics of exciting ideas you and the team have introduced since then. Can you talk a bit about, just take a moment, if you would, to talk about some of the what you put in place, in the early days of your tenure, a bit more than 3 years ago, that fostered some of that resilience and nimbleness during the course of the very trying times of the early portion of 2020?
Absolutely. And Peter, it becomes really important because you are right. I mean, we had done quite a bit of work as pandemic hit us. And I think that was key in order to make sure that we are going to sail through the pandemic, helping our customers, really making sure that they are being supported. And, Marvin Ellison's vision was always that he wanted technology to be the differentiator for Lowe's. He said, great retailers have one thing in common, and that is they all have great technology. And of course, that was the vision we wanted to work upon. And I think some of the things we did was, Peter, I could broadly classify them on three different fronts from a transformation perspective. We wanted to make sure that we have the right talent. So we had lots of existing folks at Lowe's who were instrumental in driving the transformation. And we also made sure, that we have hired, more than 1,000 people for the last 3 years, every year. And in this market and in this particular times when the need is so high, we have been successful in hiring and attracting lots of talent. So I think that definitely helped. So team was foundational. The other thing we did was how we worked was also important. And that was all about just making sure that we have these product teams in place, and what we call it as, you have heard this before, but the two pizza teams on a particular product, and just making sure that there is really the product manager, the engineers, the UX folks, and then, data experts, all kind of in those couple of scrum teams working on a particular product and going as fast as they can, taking decisions in real time, doing a daily stand-up. So how we work was very important. So the operating model. And then the third thing that was really important is the architecture, because you need to have an architecture created in such a way that you can be really nimble and you can move fast. So going back to that, hey, can we do a microservices architecture while we have all this legacy? And there are lots of very interesting patterns as to how we implement it, so that we did not disrupt the business in any shape or form. But at the same time, we kept modernizing and making sure that our business continues to serve our customers and associates in a very successful manner. And then, Peter, the one last thing I'll say is when pandemic hit us, initially, none of us knew that, is it a 2-week thing? Is it a 2-month thing? And now, we are sitting here and it's been a 2-year thing. Forget about 2 weeks. But we did not really know as to what exactly is going to be the extent of the pandemic. And there was some conversation about, hey, should we take a little bit of a pause? Like we are doing just a high speed transformation. And, we are all going to work from home for at least the next couple of weeks. And should we kind of slow down? Should we freeze production changes? And I remember this one meeting where we were all talking about, hey, what should we do for next couple of weeks? And we were drawing on the board. This was one of our last meetings, I think, before we dispersed to work from home. And we said, no, we should not stop. We should definitely not slow down. In fact, we should go faster. And that's what we did. We said, this is the time to double down and actually go faster. And we did that. And I'm so glad we did that, because it really paid off in just making sure that our transformation continued and actually gained strength through pandemic.
That's really great. And one of the trends, of course, that accelerated was this trend towards mobile and e-commerce. And I know that as your own evolution, that you led some really pioneering thinking related to spatial commerce. And I wonder if you can, first of all, define the term for those who might be less familiar with it, and talk about the form that took. Obviously, very relevant to the business that Lowe's is in. Though, again, for the uninitiated, perhaps the connection point may not be as clear. Paint that picture for us, if you would.
Yes. And Peter, one of the things that very early on I was appreciating about our Lowe's, our home improvement business, is home improvement is actually quite complex compared to, let's say, a mass retailing. Because here, if you think about it, projects are quite long duration, and they go all the way from kind of generating a lead for the customer all the way to the installation business. So it really is a whole cycle. And what happens is when you have this whole cycle, you want to make sure that you're supporting the customers throughout the whole cycle. The other thing is, these are complex and big decisions. I mean, when you are redoing your kitchen, it's almost like the whole family is involved, and then you want to get updates, you want support from the content perspective, you want to make sure that things are being done when they are supposed to be done. So I feel like, just given the size of the transaction, the number of touch points, the complexity, I feel like I always appreciated that this business is very different. And we just wanted to make sure we are unleashing solutions that are really going to help our customers. And so one of the things that we always thought about taking away friction, and we said that, we came up with this term spatial commerce, because Peter, what we are thinking is that when you're doing a project such as, I want to change the flooring of this room, you want to make sure that you are taking into account the dimensions of the room, you're able to measure it, you're able to get a good, clear and accurate estimate of how much tile are you going to need. If you were a DIY, there are lots of people who have lots of skills and they may just do it on their own. And then there are others who may need services. And throughout this, we wanted to make sure that we are taking care of the space you are in. We are helping you measure that, estimate it, and help you through the transactions. Frankly, the actual buying, we wanted that to be the smallest part. That should happen really fast. It should be really convenient. But the initial part of imagining, measuring, inspiring you is what we feel is all the fun part. And we really want our customers to enjoy it. That's the part we are calling it as spatial commerce. And just to give you an example, let's say I wanted to change the tiles in this room. My first question is how much it's going to cost me, and how much material do I need? And as you can see, Peter, I'm in this room right now, and there are tables and chairs and stuff like that. I'm not going to move all this just to measure it in my busy life. That's friction. And so we were kind of like, okay, this is a friction point for our customers, and how do we solve it? And then Peter, as the technology and devices, everything comes together, then our innovation team gets the fuel of, okay, this is how we solve this problem. And one of the things we observed is with iPhone 12 Pro, a technology called LiDAR was coming into iPhones. And this is really basically a depth perception technology, and iPhone's camera and the rest of the technology works in concert to give you that depth perception. I mean, this technology is used in like self-driving cars. I mean, there are many places where this is applied. But now the phenomenal thing is iPhone 12 Pro and then iPhone 13, every iPhone 13, you are going to have this LiDAR technology in your hands as a consumer. And so what we came up with, our innovation team, is they came up with an experience where you simply hold your phone in your hands, Peter, and the app, it is completely integrated in our Lowe's app. It'll give you directions as to how to move about the room. There are some experiences we have nicely integrated where it guides you. It shows you the arrows to how to move around the room. There is a little bit of a gamification. You collect Lowe's coins with a Lowe's cable, so you know you're doing it right because it's those coins are serving as markers. So you move around the room. The whole process takes just a couple of minutes, and the capture happens. And inside the app, it draws you a floor map and gives you an opportunity to correct the floor map if needed. But that floor map is the map that gives you the measurements. It tells you how much material you're going to need it. You can add it to the cart, buy it. And then, Peter, that is your floor map to keep. I mean, today it's tile changing. Tomorrow it could be painting the walls. And now you know you've measured your room in those couple of minutes and you have it for yourself. And what we feel is this is the way we want to take out more and more friction out of our customers' life. I feel like we want to keep the fun parts in and take the friction out.
That's a really great way to frame that, Seemantini, and what a compelling example that is. And I wonder if you could take a moment. There are several things in your response that highlight the way in which rising technology, technology on the rise, being used in a variety of different areas, as you point out, LiDAR, becoming available in a mass scale through iPhones and iPads, for instance, all of a sudden made this possible. Without the kind of universality of that, then this is all theoretical. But if it's in something that's in a good percentage of your customers or would-be customers' hands, all of a sudden this becomes more realistic. How do you and your team do some of that puzzle piece fitting as you go through your own kind of innovation activities? How do you go about the understanding, of course, needs and creative ideas that the company might bring to life for customers, while also testing, a variety of different technologies that represent trends on the rise to see where there's a fit or where there might not be?
Yeah. And Peter, really that's I feel like it's a three-pronged approach. You're absolutely right. Because what you have to do is you have to keep an eye on the marketplace and technology trends and say what devices, what technologies, what's emerging out there. And you really have to keep an eye on that because some problems suddenly become solvable as soon as the technology comes out. The other thing we are keeping a keen eye on is the customer herself or himself, because we are also, that needs extreme empathy to say, how are people doing their home improvement projects? What are the friction points? What is it that kind of delights them and what is it that frustrates them, right? So there is this whole lens about what are customers trying to solve. And one of the things during pandemic was, some of the efforts we did around lockers, curbside pickup. I mean, this was all about, hey, customers really want to have this choice now, whether they want to come inside the store or want to wait in the parking lot. I mean, that was the whole, research that, hey, what do customers want right now? And in the future, I mean, as millennials, so Peter, I'll give you another example. As more and more millennials get into home ownership, right? These are digitally native. They are used to doing things one way. And now they are actually, as we watch them, there are a lot of interesting things happening because their needs could be quite different than a person like me who did not grow up digitally native. And I could take a tape measure and measure it, but the millennials' idea of measuring could be quite different. Now, the third thing is you also have to look at your own business strategy for every company and just say, what is our business strategy? What is our aspiration? What do we really want to do from our strategic lens perspective? And you have to bring all that together and say, what is the customer pain point or what are their aspirations? Put them in the middle. What are our business aspirations? And then what's happening in the marketplace from a technology trend perspective? And then where is this intersection and could we solve some really interesting problems?
I like the way that you frame that, Seemantini. Very compelling and very interesting stories you tell in terms of the way in which you brought that to life as well. No doubt this exemplifies where business is going as opposed to where it's been, and so reorienting your team to be aware of these changes, these shifts in behaviors, especially with the rising generations that are only going to become more relevant. Important to do that dot connecting to make sure that you're on top of those trends and tastes and means of interaction that your customers will be craving, and making sure that you have a means of meeting that demand as it continues to unfold. But Seemantini Godbole, thank you so much for taking time with me today. What a fascinating set of a fascinating conversation about the remarkable work you and your team are doing and fostering tremendous nimbleness and resilience during trying times. To maintain a tremendous position of leadership in the industry for Lowe's. Thank you for a great conversation.
Thank you, Peter. Great talking to you.